Welcome to another episode of Growth Hacker TV. I'm Bronson Taylor, and today I have Scott Britton with us. Scott, thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm fired up to be here.
Yeah, we're fired up to have you. For one of the reasons, you were a part of a $100 million exit a couple of years ago, so obviously you have something to share. You were part of the team at Single Platforms. That's a big deal. And now you actually educate people through online courses. And the website where people can find your courses is lifelonglearner.com, and that's life-longlearner.com. And what I want to do today is I just want to dig into one of your courses. The actual course, I think, is about 6 hours long. So we're just going to kind of scrape the surface and whet their appetite a little bit and still give them some good value. And if they want more, they can go to the source and, get the whole course. But the course I picked out that I want to dive into is called Cold Emailing for Startups. Sound good to you?
That sounds great, man. That's one of my favorite ones.
As I looked at the course, I was like, I like that one. I'm a cold email guy myself. I know the value in it. So, but let's start broad. Let's not dig into inside baseball yet.
Sure.
What's the big definition of a cold email as opposed to a warm email?
Sure. So cold email, very simple. You're sending an email to somebody that you've never made a connection with before. So you might have heard about this person, you might have seen them on another website, but you've never had a dialogue or interaction with that person prior.
Gotcha. So, it's pretty straightforward. You don't know them. It's cold. Now, why is cold emailing an important strategy? Like, why does this idea even matter? Because at first it's like, all right, if I've never met them and I'm sending them an email, it can't be that important, right?
Well, here's the thing, man. When you can write great cold emails, you're literally one click away from anyone in the world. And you think about all the people out there, whether it's specific individuals, companies, investors, that can push you forward, odds are that you don't know all of them. Mm-hmm. So having the ability to connect with anyone through an email and start that dialogue and potentially work out some type of relationship or connection that's going to push you forward is an insanely valuable skill.
No,
so that's why
awesome.
I find so much value in it. I mean, it's literally a superpower.
Yeah, it sounds like a superpower because, you think about the connections we have, the warm connections, and, they're very finite. I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands, but it's not tens of thousands. But you think about the emails in the world, it's anyone. I mean, anyone who's ever had an email address, they're in your little black book now, and you can reach out to them if you know how to. And that's what I want to hopefully educate people with today is knowing their email address and knowing what to do with it are two different things. And so we'll dig into some of those details. First, though, give me an example. You were a part of some big exits. You're a part of startups now. What's an example where cold emailing has been a game changer for you? You did a cold email and it mattered. It made something different in your own business.
So I'll give you 3 examples.
All right, even better.
So first, my launch into startups and entrepreneurship started with a cold email. I was working for a sports agency that represented pro baseball players right out of college. Thought I wanted to be Jerry Maguire. Read the 4-Hour Workweek. Decided I want to be an entrepreneur. And I was reading the New York Times one day, and some kid I went to college with, who, quite frankly, I wasn't the biggest fan of before we actually developed a relationship. I saw that he raised $1 million from Peter Thiel. And I was like, this is my shot. I have some type of relationship connection to this guy. I'm going to send him a cold email. And I found his email on the media kit. We never really spoke before. I just knew who he was. Mm-hmm. And that resulted in me getting my first job at a startup and ultimately launching me down this path of entrepreneurship. So the whole reason that I'm doing this and probably not playing Excel like a keyboard is because of a cold email.
That's awesome. All right, number 2.
Yeah, and I guess like more in the lines of the actual business world and my career at Single Platform, which we talked about a little bit, we had an awesome $100 million exit. One of my favorite deals that came through a cold email was the company TomTom. So TomTom is a data provider that powers the nav systems in cars, data behind the iPhone, so like iPhone Maps. They have their own apps and different tools that they use where people are using local business data. And one of the things that I did at that company was build data relationships where all of these different sources where people are finding information to whether it's Yelp or Foursquare or Google Place or whatever it is, we were powering that, and that was the product that we sold to local businesses. Was we're going to give you one place to enter in all of the information about your restaurant, spa, salons, the menu, the address, the phone number, the pictures, whatever it is, and we're going to allow you to change that dynamically. And one of my favorite deals that was from a cold email was TomTom, and so that started off through a cold email. I ended up having to fly out to Amsterdam when the company is located, using another tactic that we might be able to dive into later. That was pretty awesome, and ended up getting a major deal that put us, from everywhere from iPhones to cars, just off of one email. So it just kind of just goes to show you the power that this has. And then in my own business today, which is educating people on a variety of subjects that have allowed me to achieve progress in my life that I'm passionate about, one of the places that I host my courses is Udemy, in addition to my own sites and applications, or own membership sites that I created. And after I launched like one of my more recent products on there, and I think I got 2,000 people signed up within the first 2 days, I sent a cold email over to somebody on the Udemy marketing team that, hey, just want to let you know that I just launched this course. It seems like it's doing really well. It might be a good fit to be featured. And what do you know, within 24 hours, the course was on the Udemy homepage. And I got a huge spike of traffic and sales from that email. So these are just a few examples of how cold emailing has changed my life, and hopefully it kind of demonstrates how it can push you forward in a variety of ways.
No, those are awesome examples. And just think, I mean, that's literally from, I don't know you, I'm going to send you an email, and those kind of doors have opened up. Do you think it's fair to say that if you're in business development, that cold emailing should be one of your, or maybe the primary tool that you use?
I think for somebody who's newer to the industry, even like 5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years in, cold emailing is going to be a huge part of it. It's going to be absolutely critical because, again, odds are you don't have every connection in the industry. In an ideal world, you have a huge Rolodex of a ton of people you can call on, and you never have to cold email or cold call somebody. But for most people, that reality just doesn't exist, and you're going to have to go out there and knock on doors. And how I like to think about cold email is you want to use the communication mechanism that the person that you're trying to get in touch with is comfortable with. And for most people, most executives, people at larger companies, people at other tech companies, they operate on email. Cold calling their cell phone is probably not a good idea. So you want to calibrate with your prospects, and typically that is email. So I absolutely agree. It's a vital skill to have in business development. And honestly, the same goes for marketers as well, and CEOs. I mean, some of the biggest traffic spikes I've gotten on my site is cold emailing owners of other sites to re-syndicate my content. Yeah. And if I didn't know how to do that effectively, I wouldn't receive the traffic, I wouldn't grow my email list, I wouldn't do all those important things that marketers are trying to do.
All right, so now that we know the importance of cold emailing, kind of the first question that comes to my mind is, how do you select the right person in an organization to email? Because it seems like, all right, do I go for the CEO because he's a decision maker? Or do I go for the low guy in the totem pole because maybe I can get through? Is it somewhere in the middle? What's the psychology? What's the reasoning of who do you actually contact when you've decided to cold email somebody?
Sure. So I always like to try to go for the decision maker, the person who I think is particularly who's going to make the decision around whatever I'm trying to get them in touch with, and has that power. A lot of times people go below that person, and it just is going to cost you extra steps. And it might just be, you might get pushed down, but you at least give yourself a chance of making the deal process, the relationship building process, whatever it is, as efficient as possible by going directly to the decision maker. So it depends upon the size of the company. For startups of like 1 to 10 people, it might make sense to go, or even 20 people, it might make sense to go directly to the CEO and they'll refer you. But when you start talking about larger corporations of like 100 to 1,000 to even bigger than that, the CEO is probably getting 500 emails a day. And getting their time is going to be more difficult, and they might not even know the exact person for you to talk to. So at that point, you want to kind of get more granular.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. Is it smart to send the same email to multiple people? Like, let's say you know everyone on that team in that part of the organization. Do you just blast them all and think, all right, there's 10 people on the team, one of them's going to get it and bring it up in their meeting? Or is that, not wise for some reason? How do you see that idea?
Sure. So I personally like to try to stay away from that. My goal when I email you is for it to seem like that I know exactly who you are. I've done my homework. I've come up with a pitch that is, or a talking point that is just what you want to hear. And I think that carpet bombing 10 people, while it may get their attention, is not necessarily the best way to begin a relationship.
Okay.
So I try to avoid that. That's not to say that can't be an effective strategy. When I don't get a response from somebody or I can't figure out who the decision maker is, there is a tactic that my friend Brian taught me from Breakthrough Email, where you do email 4 different people who are like the likely decision maker and try to determine who the right person to talk to is. However, I still think that, again, these people are all talking. You're flooding all of their inboxes. It's best if you can isolate that person and reach them directly.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. All right, so we know cold emailing is important. We now know the kind of person we should be finding. We know we should be finding one person, not multiple people. But now the next big question is, you don't have their email address, right? I mean, you can want to get in touch with them all day long, but they have not emailed you their address. And so obviously if it's on the website, great. That's an easy place to go get it. But tell me some of the tools of the trade. When you're at this point, how do you actually go out and get that piece of data, the email address, to start this process?
Sure. I'd be happy to talk about that. I also think it would be really cool to tell your audience just a few strategies to actually find who that decision maker is in the first place.
Yeah, please.
Because a lot of times, there's 8 marketing directors. Which one is going to be the right person to talk to? I have no idea when the company has 1,000 people. So the number one ways that I try to do that are using LinkedIn. A lot of the most basic way is basically sometimes people provide very granular descriptions of what they're actually responsible for in a profile of their LinkedIn. So let's say marketing director, and then it says social media campaigns, SEO, whatever it is they do. Another place on a LinkedIn profile that a lot of people don't utilize is the skills and expertise section. So if you go down to the bottom of the profile, it's basically shows what they've been endorsed for. And odds are, if somebody's in marketing, which is a lot of like business development, B2B salespeople are trying to get in touch with, it'll have like 15 endorsements on SEO, 3 on social media, 3 on email marketing, and like 1 on PPC or something. Odds are this person manages the SEO. When you're on LinkedIn, you want to make sure to also be seeing who you have mutual connections with to anybody at that company, and then email that person if they're a good relationship and just ask them, hey, it looks like you're connected to somebody at this company. Have you done work with them in the past? Any chance you might know who a good person or who the right person to talk to XYZ about is? So use your data, use your network as recon. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just do an informational cold call. So there's people make a lot of mistakes with cold call. They make the call without identifying the goal of the call. And at this point in the game, the goal is to find out who the decision maker is. So calling the number on a corporate website, which is usually available, and just saying, let's say you're trying to get in touch with whoever manages social media, saying, hey, I was hoping you might be able to help me out. Do you have any idea who manages social media initiatives at XYZ company? And they'll just give you their name. And like that's all you want, because once you have their name, there's a 99.9% chance you can find their email address. And again, we want to approach via email. So those are just a few of my favorite strategies to find out who that particular person is. I have a really long posts written about that. Also, in my course that you talked a little bit about, we go over a lot of different other ones you can use, but I find myself using those a lot.
Yeah. And so, what are some of the tools to actually find the email address now? I know you've listed a few of them that you go through in the course there.
Yeah, so my favorite, man, is Reportive.
Yeah.
So
Thing's amazing, isn't
Reportive,
it?
it's absolutely amazing, and I've been on pins and needles since they've gotten bought by LinkedIn
Just
that they're
waiting for
going
it to
to.
stop, right?
Yeah. I'm just like, don't ever stop. They're like, this is just as valuable as my LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a very simple Gmail plugin that allows you to populates the social profile data available for a particular email address if it's public in the right hand side of your email address. And basically, you can use this to enter in popular email syntaxes. So like first dot last name at thecompanyurl.com. And in many instances, it will show the social data only when you've guessed the right email address.
Yeah.
Right? And this is a super valuable tactic. And why I like Reportive so much is in addition to getting the actual email address, you also now have the ability to like see their Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and all right there. So you can quickly gloss and hover over that and see what they were most recently talking about and tweeting about. And this kind of gives you maybe a touch point of connection that you could bring up in the cold email or even when you actually get this person on the phone.
Yeah.
Another amazing tool is at mailtester.com. Mailtester.com is basically just a tool that looks like it was built in 1991 that you type in, you guess email syntaxes, and it actually pings the server and sees if that email address exists on that particular site. So again, first initial, last name, just first name, last name at whatevercompany.com. All great things. There's a couple of popular sites out there like data.com or jigsaw.com that is a crowdsourced directory of contact information, and you can either pay or give up email addresses of other people to then search company directories. I recommend that when you use this, you always double check that email address that you get from there in Reporter or Mail Tester, because a lot of times people just populate false email addresses. And one of my favorite newer ways I've learned to find email address is this tool called snapbird.org.
Yeah, I haven't heard about this one yet. So what is this?
And this is great for trying to connect with people that use Twitter. So a lot of times you'll see dialogues on Twitter where people will say, hey, I want to shoot you an email about something. And that person replies like, get back to me at XYZ spelled out at gmail.com or companyname.com. And what you can do is Snapbird can search the tweet history of anybody. So you type in that person's handle you're trying to get in touch with, which you can find by Googling their name. And then you type in the words gmail.com or companyname.com. And a lot of times you'll be able to identify those specific instances where people were giving out their email address over their Twitter.
And then you put that in Reportive, make sure it's legit, and there you go. You got your cold email ready to happen.
That's it, man. And I tell you, I've found the personal email addresses of some absolute business studs that were like that I would have never guessed, that were so unique, like their name 4578612 at gmail.com, using this strategy. And it's resulted in meeting some people that I really look up to.
No,
so
cool.
That's a really, really cool strategy, especially for the hard to reach.
Yeah. Now, one question that comes to mind is, what about LinkedIn messaging? Because I've heard, different things on it. Do you think it's a good idea to use their platform to send cold emails, or should it be used for something different?
So I'm not going to say that it doesn't work, because it can work. But what I believe is that when you look at your LinkedIn messages recently, are they from your friends? Are they from the people that you know and they trust? Or are they from recruiters, people trying to sell you stuff, random people asking for your time that you don't know?
I got you. I see it.
I find most of the people that email me on LinkedIn are the latter. Now, compare that with email. That's where my buddies are emailing me, my business contacts, my colleagues.
Yep.
So if possible, I want to put myself in that other bucket. And so I will always go and try to reach out to somebody on email over a LinkedIn message.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in absolute desperation, I will send somebody an email and a LinkedIn message to try to connect to them, and it has worked for me. But again, I think it's always best to start the relationship off at the absolute best point possible,
Mm-hmm.
which I believe is done over email.
Yeah, that's great. So we know we should cold email. We know who to cold email. We know where to cold email them at. But now the really big question: what do we cold email them? Right? What's in the actual email itself? Because this is when the art comes into it. Everything up till now is kind of science. Like, here's how you get an email address. Here's how you find the decision maker. But now this is where we get into the form of art of crafting a great email. Is there a certain mindset you go into it with at a high level?
Absolutely. I take the copywriter's mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that one thing that has made me successful and given me a little bit of advantage amongst other people in sales and biz dev is a lot of people don't study copywriting. And they don't understand that the goal of the subject line is to get somebody to open the email.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of the first sentence is to get somebody to read the second sentence.
Mm-hmm.
The goal of the second sentence is to get somebody to read the third sentence, right? And so you have to take this mindset of the writing process is, to give yourself a chance, you have to get them to read the email.
Yep.
And to get them to read the email, you have to write in such a way that is going to effectively not only grab their attention, but communicate something that's compelling enough for them to respond.
Yeah. I have the exact same mindset myself when it comes to email. I think about it as a copywriting task. Even when I'm writing internal emails to employees or coworkers, I think like a copywriter because that's what gets read and that's what gets remembered and acted upon. And so I think it's just good for communication, period. Know how to be a copywriter.
Absolutely. I think it's the biggest strategic advantage anybody who wants to get into biz dev or sales can do because nobody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Nobody else is reading books like Breakthrough Advertising, mm-hmm. testing copy. Yeah. I will say you want to be careful. You always want to calibrate. There's a lot of people that are quote unquote copywriters out there, and they're like too salesy and ridiculous, and you feel like it's slimy. Yeah. You don't want to be like that, but you do want to make sure you grab somebody's attention.
Yeah.
And I think the best way to do that is indicating early and often how you can provide value.
Yeah, and that's how you build a business, seriously, is just provide value, tell them that, and then actually do it. No, you're right. There's different camps of copywriters, and different camps work for different kinds of products, different kinds of people, and so you really got to be empathetic with your audience. I absolutely agree. All right, so from address. What's a good from address? Should I send something from info at my company? Should it be my name at my company? Should it be my name at Gmail? Make it super low-key and personal? What's a good from address to make them more likely to open it?
Company email address always.
All
Whether
right.
that's your first name or your first name, last name at company email address.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think it matters the syntax. Like I don't think somebody goes, oh, they have a big first and last name email address. Must be a huge company. I don't think that really makes that much of a difference.
Yeah.
But you do want to include at the company email address and just look at your own behavior, right? When somebody emails you from their company address, you're not familiar with that company, what do? You go to the company website,
yeah.
right? So you want to make it as easy as possible for that person to find information about you, which is why you email from your company email address.
All right, what about the subject? Because like you just said, the subject, the only thing it has to do is get them to open it. It's not a description of everything that's going to be in the email. It's not like the most important thing necessarily in the email. It's something that's going to get them to open it. What makes people open something? What kinds of subject lines actually work?
Yeah, so the way that I think about the mindset and other mindsets that I have about email, mm-hmm. especially when you're approaching people that are important and influential and busy, is that I am fighting for their inbox attention. Mm-hmm. And every minute that I make somebody try to guess why I'm emailing them or what my email is about is an opportunity for me to lose them. Mm-hmm. So I like to balance between being incredibly direct about why I'm emailing them and also very compelling.
Okay.
So why don't you give me an example of a tool or solution of somebody of why you might want to reach out, and I could come up with a subject line on the fly.
All right, Growth Hacker TV. I want to email somebody to come on the show and be a guest.
Okay, so if you feel comfortable, how many people does Growth Hacker TV reach a month?
Thousands, many
So
thousands.
I would literally write the email being like, "Can we feature you in front of thousands of growth hackers?"
Okay. Because then they know they're going to be featured, and they know it's about something there, and they know it's a big enough number to matter to them to at least read the email. Is that the idea?
Right. Like I just got a great email from this guy who wants to re-syndicate one of my courses on the largest deal site in Australia,
Hmm.
and he said the course specifically is sleep hacking, and the email title was "Sleep Hacking for 3.5 million Aussies."
Of course, you're going to open that.
You kidding me? Like I'm gonna open that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna open that.
Yeah.
So I mean that those are the type of subject lines that are amazing.
Yeah.
And if you want to real quick talk about subject lines that are bad
Yeah. Tell
and
me some
to
of those too.
avoid, so one that I see a lot is presuming somebody's time.
Hmm.
So something like coffee meeting or
Yeah.
like Skype call next week.
It scares them
Like
away, right?
it's like, dude, I don't even know you, and you're just assuming I'm going to give you my time. Like, you have
Hmm.
to earn that.
Yeah.
So never presume that somebody's going to give you their time. Those are bad ones. Ones that are indescriptive, that don't tell me like exactly what you're reaching out about. So something maybe like, boy, I don't even know.
Hmm.
Hey, or solution for your business. Okay, like like tell me what type of solution. Like tell
Give me
you know
something.
you're gonna make me open this. Don't make it incredibly generic.
Yeah.
You want to make it specific. You want somebody to know exactly why you're emailing them.
It
Uh,
seems like if you just do like kind of reverse psychology, like think about the emails, like you said before, that you actually open. And but now when you go to open them, think why? Why did I just open this one? If you just pause in your own email more often, you'll start learning all these things. They're actually hard to put into words that you know matter. Like the from address, like the subject line, all these little things. And if you just start reverse engineering your own actions, I think people are going to figure out there's a certain kind of email that always gets opened, and there's other kinds that never will.
yeah, exactly.
No, that's good. So in the body itself, how long should an email be? Am I trying to write War and Peace and cover everything that I have in my mind? Is it trying to be one sentence and just be like, I respect you so much, here's a sentence? Oh, what do you think?
Honestly, I aim for no more than 4 sentences.
4 sentences.
4 sentences or less. I've sent ones that are 1 sentence incredibly effective.
Hmm.
What happens is when somebody opens their email that they don't from somebody they don't know, and it's a Bill Shakespeare novel, and you're emailing from any other company than Google.com,
Hmm.
like I just won't read it
Yeah.
because I'm busy. I don't know you. My life is already in a great place before you reached out.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure life will go on if I don't respond to this email. And so
Hmm.
you don't want to give off the vibe that you're going to make somebody do a lot of work,
Yeah.
right, to read through it. It's not to say that people might not, but the I think where a lot of people fail is they think that the body of the email has to tell their whole story
Hmm.
and like and like all the features of the product and all these things. No, the goal of the email is just to start a dialogue.
Yeah.
And once you start a dialogue, people are more likely to feel onus to respond to you and to continue that dialogue. So make it super, super short, simple, and easy for somebody to get back to you. And then you can eventually work in, your grandmaster product, strategy, plan, whatever it is that's going to help this person and help you.
Yeah, so like before you said don't presume their time. Don't just say, hey, let's get coffee, because that's presuming they would do that and they have the time to do that and they want to do that. But you are saying the goal is to get a dialogue going. So does that mean that your goal in those 4 sentences is to maybe ask an open-ended question that they can respond to? Is it to get them to sign up for something small? Like, what is the tangible, specific goal that you're usually trying to do? Just get them to reply with anything at all?
It depends. It depends what the product is. It depends what my goal is.
Hmm.
When I was doing outbound emails for the last company that I did biz dev for, single platform, my goal was to get a meeting with them,
Hmm.
and that would be a phone call with a screen share. So I would ask, like, do you have any time to connect next week? Do you have any time to meet next week
Hmm.
for a Skype call? That was my goal. Now, there's other times where And there's no one size fits all. You have to try different things and see what tests your market.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just consulting with a friend who's trying to reach local businesses, and the question that I asked, the strategy that we came up with that we found effective is building a chain of yeses. So it's the first question is, hey, the email was something like, hey, we're working with some of the top physical therapy firms in the area to test out this new product. Are you guys currently at capacity? And of course they're not at capacity. No local business is ever at capacity. And then they're going to respond like, oh no, we're actually not at capacity. We actually still have room. Great. Like, we wanted to see if you guys were a good fit for our particular product. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions to see if you're eligible for? And then like, yes. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm 6 emails in with this person, and they're going to respond to whatever I say. And then that has actually been a much more effective strategy than asking somebody for a meeting right off the bat that isn't tech savvy, that doesn't get the screen share, that isn't used to doing Skype calls with screen share. Like, you have to try to calibrate what's intriguing to your audience, their sophistication in terms of technology and the type of calls these get, and also how many inbounds they're getting. Right? So, I might have to reverse engineer. I might have to approach somebody differently that is getting 50 people reaching out to them today that's getting them 5.
You said something really important there that I want to key in on for people. You said if I'm 6 emails in with them, they're going to respond to whatever I say. I don't think people realize that sometimes. They think that it has to all happen in the first email or two. It's okay if you have a bunch of emails back and forth that are a sentence long, and that's actually good sometimes because that's like they're on the hook. And they're not going to ignore you after 6 little quick sentences back and forth. Now you're text messaging each other like little, girls would in middle school. Like, now the dialogue's just flowing, right?
Exactly. That's it. And people feel like a subconscious just desire to be consistent with their previous behavior of responding to you.
Exactly.
That's gonna make them respond.
Yeah.
And you can use that to your advantage.
That's great. Now, one thing you say is try to avoid making declarations. What kind of declaration should we not put in those emails?
Oh man, I love this so much. So once upon a time, a cold email guru told me that your first sentence should always be like telling somebody who you are and what you're all about. And typically that reads, hi, prospect name. My name is Scott Britton from lifelonglearner.com. We've taught over 15,000 different students with our online courses and been featured in particular special publications like news.com Australia, whatever it is. Like, nobody cares who you are. They care about how you can help them. And that is what's interesting to them. So when I say spare the declaration, like, anybody who is relatively sophisticated, if you link to your company in your email signature or any articles, and you email from your company address and give a very brief description around what you do or how you can help, this person's going to be able to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's a huge waste of a sentence to me, and quite frankly, it's a turnoff.
Yeah, it's a bad first sentence. It may be a no-go after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think about how I interact with strangers at a bar. If somebody came up to me, and was like, "Hey, my name is this, and this is how cool I am, and this is all how I've accomplished, and all these things," and that was the first thing they said to me, I'd be like, "Dude, you're a tool." But if somebody came up to me like, "Hey, I noticed that you have like these really cool Nikes on, and my friend actually works for Nike and can get everybody a 50% discount who I refer him to. Like, would you be interested?" I'm all of a sudden like, I don't know who this guy is, but I want to talk to him.
Exactly. He made the conversation about you.
Yeah, you make it about the person. You make it about them. You make it about how you can help them and make their lives better, because that's truly what's interesting to everybody.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we're all ego-driven beings, and we're all out there to try to improve our own businesses. So you want to make it about how you can help them in their business.
Now, what do you think about like exclamation points, smiley faces? Because I mean, I use those a lot, so I don't know if you agree with that or not, but I put them in all the time, even when they don't seem relevant. I don't know why. It just feels like it works for me. I mean, but you may totally disagree. I don't know. What do you think?
No. So I think again, it's calibrating, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm talking to a guy who or somebody that I can just tell is like fun and young, maybe they work at like a small tech company and they
Hmm.
get it. I'm all for that because realistically, most people are bored as all hell at their
Yes.
jobs. So
Yes.
any time that you can inject delight into an email, you're going to be more effective, right?
Hmm.
But if I'm emailing a 65-year-old VP at a Fortune 500 company, I'm probably going to avoid the exclamation points and smiley faces
Uh-huh.
until I know that that person would appreciate that type of uh, dialogue.
Yeah.
So I think again, it's all about calibrating with your target, and the only way to do that, at least in the initial cold email, is to do some homework, do some due diligence.
Hmm.
Go check out this person on LinkedIn. See if their profile says they like anything funny. Go on their Twitter, go on their Facebook. What does their personality seem like online? And
Hmm.
then calibrate with that.
Yeah.
And then once I have started the email relationship, I am like, and I get a sense that people like that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm full bore on
Yeah.
making these emails as fun as possible. I'm attaching weird photos of me, like
Yeah.
I'm like taking pictures of like the developers, and I'm like, I'm so, P.S. so happy I don't have to look at green code all day. Like
Uh-huh.
I'm doing like all kinds of stuff, inside jokes, because at that point I know that I'm in, and
Hmm.
that people are more willing to do things for people that they like,
Hmm.
and it's about really building the relationship and making it a joy every single time they open my email.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Now, what do you think about the spacing in an email? In my mind, this is like a high art, getting the spacing right to make somebody actually work through the whole thing. So you're working with about 4 sentences. Are you putting those together in a paragraph block? Are you breaking those up 1 sentence per paragraph? What are you doing with those?
Most sentences next to each other at a time is two. I want to because it's about making it easy to read,
Yeah.
and you want to make it appear easy to read. So spacing does that. If I see a giant chunk of text, I'm probably going to skim it. I'm
Hmm.
probably going to say that looks like a lot. But if I see like three blocks that are like 1 or 2 lines long each, then I'm like, oh, like this is nothing. This will take me
I
a
can
second to
do
get.
this.
Yeah. So I say it's fine to go like you want to have use grammar conventions, right, and
Hmm.
make logical transitions between spaces.
Hmm.
But I think that the max number of sentences next to each other in an initial cold email should be two.
Yeah, and
And
people have to
it's
relearn how to think that way. Like, because thinking like a copywriter is different than thinking like a high school English teacher, which is where you learn to write. Like, we're not looking for 4 sentences, the first one opening up what it is, the next two supporting it, and then a final conclusion sentence. We're looking for like short, concise, value packed, I'm going to keep reading, keep my attention, I'm barely here kind of sentences, right?
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's good. What about the signature? How do you close it out? Do you want a big block of here's every way to get in touch with me? Do you want it to be super personal? Thanks, comma Bronson. Like, what do you think about the signature on stuff?
Yeah. So in terms of the like sign off address,
Mm-hmm.
I again try to calibrate. Usually I'll just put like if I don't know this person, the standard is like best best Scott, just first name. Again, trying not to make it too formal.
Mm-hmm.
The actual, you should always include an email signature with more information about you. The important elements are your name, your position at whatever particular company, a link to your website, and then phone number is always good. Sometimes people like to call you right back.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think if you have any press articles, put those in there
Mm-hmm.
because when I see somebody and it's like as featured in the New York Times, TechCrunch,
Mm-hmm.
and Wall Street Journal, I'm like, whoa, who's this dude or what's this company? They must be important.
Yeah.
So those are the ones that I think you should include, and you want to calibrate with what is important to your audience, like nobody that I'm selling to cares about my Twitter handle, right? Care about how important my company is. But if I'm a blogger and I'm asking people to come on my podcast and I have 50,000 Twitter followers,
It's relevant.
then maybe I should include my Twitter handle because they might click on that, and I can signal that I'm a big deal there.
Yeah.
So that's how I think about it. You want to tailor that to what's important to your audience, and you want to include the information that they need that's going to make it enticing for them to get back to you.
Yeah. So now we've worked through this whole process. We've hit the send button, and months or days, weeks, maybe months go by. Do we email them again, or is that it? One shot and then you move on, or do you follow up? What do you think? You're smiling. I know why you're smiling.
You got to follow up.
You're gonna follow up.
Like, so I'd say that 50% your response rate, 50% of the responses come after the second time you email somebody.
Really?
Yep. And I usually aim for a window of like 3 to 7 days. If I haven't heard back from somebody, I'll respond. I'll just actually the best way to respond is to reply to the original email that you sent and just say, "Hey, first name, I just wanted to see if you had a chance to look at my email below regarding how I might be able to help you with X. Have any time to chat next week?" 2 sentences, right? And the reason that I do the follow-up by replying to the original is because I want to make it as easy as possible for that person to have context of who I am and why I'm reaching out to them. I don't want to make them go to disparate emails, search their inbox.
They're not going to.
Yeah, they're not going to, and it's going to be a pain. So, make it easy. Reply, make it 2 sentences, super short, and I get an absolutely awesome response rate after that.
All right. When do you stop responding when there's no response? Is it 5 emails? Is it 3? Is it 7? Like, when is it just like, all right, move on. This is a waste of time.
So my workflow, and this is obviously just dependent upon the particular target, but after I send 2 emails, I usually like to try another communication mechanism.
Okay.
So for somebody that's in a big office, I'll try a cold call. I'll try to hit them up twice, 2 cold calls, second one leave a voicemail. Then I'll do an email after the voicemail asking if they got my message. So that's like 5 touch points. But if somebody is, a tech entrepreneur and they don't have their phone on their website, or maybe they're a blogger or something, maybe I would go to Twitter and just at them and say, "Hey, shot you a note about X. You have a chance to look at the email?" Or maybe I would try LinkedIn if they don't have a Twitter account. So I think that after you've tried 2 different channels, and maybe even done like another email that references that other channel, then I think it's time for you to try to go on an alternate route, and that could be a different department, a different person at the company. Try to figure out if they're going to be at a conference or something and meet them in person, or some type of event. But after that point, you don't want to be a gnat. There's a reason that they haven't gotten back to you. They've definitely seen you. So you need to try something else.
Yeah. It's great because it seems like the insight that biz dev people know is that persistence matters a lot. And people that are not in biz dev, they think, "Oh, well, I sent the email, I tried. Oh, I made the phone call, I tried." They don't realize that this is like, it's a sport, and you have to go at it with intensity for prolonged periods of time, often. And then you get the payoff, and you win. People don't get how the world actually works when it comes to online communication, do they?
It's a war of attrition. Like, who's gonna last the longest? Like, I'm gonna wear people down until I get the answer that I want. And I think a big just mindset shift a lot of people have to have is, listen, the reason that they didn't respond to you isn't necessarily because they're not interested. It could be because they didn't see the email, it got lost in their inbox, they meant to get it back to you and they forgot about it. Somebody stole their car and they just declared email bankruptcy. It could be a plethora of reasons. So I just always assume with conviction that they want to hear from me, and that the reason they didn't get back to me is not because they're not interested. I assume it's something else.
That's a great conviction to have.
And that allows me to be incredibly persistent.
Yeah, they want to hear from me again. And when you actually believe that, you're going to make some sales and get some connections and do some biz dev deals. It seems like business development and cold emailing specifically, if it's something you really master, it can be a way to be a part of startups, kind of like your initial intro into startups, without being a technical person. Do you think that more people should consider that as a route, like master cold emailing, and then maybe that's a good route into startup culture and startups themselves?
Absolutely. So the way for people to get into startups is people. Like there's a zilch that are non-technical. If you don't really have a ton of skills, you're going to have to rely on a personal relationship to get a non-technical job. That's just the way it works. And the best way to build powerful personal relationships is to add value to people, to start dialogues, to meet people. And if you can get a couple powerful people, build relationships with them in your corner, like you will get a job if you impress them. So you can start that process off by cold emailing them and providing value to them. So I think it's an absolute amazing skill.
Yeah.
And, truthfully, like, again, you get this skill down, you can be one click away from anybody that you want. And that could be any job that you want, any type of investor, whatever it is. So it's just super high leverage. And I think that people, if you can get really good at cold emailing and copywriting, and honestly, it really just comes down to understanding people. Then you can perform at a high level in biz dev. I mean, even if all you do is actually source the meetings, and then let somebody else come in there and kick the door down and close.
Yep. If I could even speak to the other side of it for a second, I myself am a designer, I'm a marketer. My brother who I work with on my projects is an engineer. Neither of us are really biz dev people. Like, I get it, I value it, but it's not what I do day in and day out. But the third guy on our team, Mike, he is in biz dev. And I can honestly say I would not start another company without him or someone with his skill set, because what they bring to the table, until you've had it as a part of your company, you don't get how valuable it is. There's a culture of, we all know engineers are important, right? And you even hear quotes like, oh, the ceiling for your company is the engineering. And there's a lot of truth to that. But you never hear people talk that way about biz dev. But the fact is, you can write code until your hands fall off. But if you don't got biz dev people making connections and doing the things they do, it makes growth and just income a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. And guess what? Like, the way that I look at companies is I sell products before I build anything. So I don't even need an engineer to start having paying customers. And I do that with my info products. We did that the last company that I was a part of. We always pre-sell. So like, if you can start doing vapor cells and selling stuff before it exists in an ethical way, which is entirely possible, you put yourself in a pretty powerful position as an entrepreneur.
You can hire the engineers to build the thing you already sold, and now you're actually in the number one position sourcing out the things you needed.
Absolutely. And that's, there's entire companies that teach people how to do that, like the Foundation, how to pre-sell before you've written a line of code. I actually don't think they let you write. Even if you wrote code yourself, I don't think they let you build anything until you have paying customers.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome, Scott. I got one last question for you here. What's the best advice you have for any startup that's trying to grow? It's the question I always end all the interviews with.
Best advice for any startup that's trying to grow. I would say understand your customer, understand your market and how they communicate. So just examples, like a real life example of that. If somebody was trying to penetrate local businesses like restaurants, building inbound marketing right off the get-go is like not smart, because these guys are worried about making sure the open signs turned, the glasses are clean, and that their employees are showing up to work on time. They're not worried about finding new marketing solutions, right? So you're going to have to penetrate their workflow. And you're going to have to probably do it over a cold call because a lot of them aren't email savvy enough. Now compare that with somebody who's selling to a marketer. These people are online all day. They're reading different publications. They're trying to find ways to optimize their business. Then it might make sense to try to grow your business using something like inbound marketing and creating like a thought leadership content site. But the key is you just have to calibrate with what your market is receptive to and their communication mechanism and where they are already hanging out. And that's going to put you in the best chance to be successful.
Yeah, that's awesome advice to end on. Scott, thank you again for coming on Growth Hacker TV.
Thanks for having me, man.